Okay, that's right, I'm back. I'm fucking back. I can't stop myself. It ain't that I can't be stopped, it's that I just can't stop myself. That's what it is. I just can't stop. I'm like a nicotine addict that can't stop smoking. I just can't stop, man. It isn't that it's some virtue that I'm like, I'm gonna continue doing this. It's the same with cigarettes. Like, I'm just gonna keep smoking. Fuck it. I'm addicted to this. Anyways, so let's talk about the movie They Live. So this is the first thing I want to point out about the movie They Live. Okay, if you are not paying attention to and observing the so-called truther movement that's all over on the internet, then you're not going to understand why I'm talking about They Live and referencing the movie They Live. And it's it doesn't, it's okay. It doesn't mean anything. All it means is that this video, you're going to have a hard time understanding. And you're just going to be like, dude, this just sounds like a bunch of bullshit. And fair enough. But if you do understand, and you've been observing the truther movement phenomenon that's been going on for, however many years now, 20 years maybe, arguably, I don't know. Then when I bring up the movie They Live, you've got some understanding of, okay, I see what he's talking about. Okay, because They Live is arguably the most famously referenced movie that the truther movement references. They Live and the movie The Matrix are the two, and they're referenced often, okay? So since the movie They Live is such an important part of the truther movement, let's look at the movie They Live. Okay, so that's where I'm starting off. That's kind of the little introduction as to explaining why I'm talking about the movie They Live. So now that we've established They Live, yes, is a definite big part of the truther community, the conspiracy, truther movement, etc., etc. Now that I've clarified that, yes, it is. They Live is a big thing in the truther movement. Okay, so now let's observe. Let's make some observations about the movie They Live. Now, you may have noticed if you've watched any of my videos in the last couple of days, I've been talking about They Live. So, but let's do a kind of a brief deep dive into They Live instead of just referencing it in my videos. Let's talk about They Live. So we've already pointed out that They Live is this big sensational, buzz fucking type phenomena in the truther movement. They Live. Well, why is it? Why is They Live such a big deal in the truther community? Well, right? Why? Why would it be? Well, you have to watch the movie and you have to be observing the truth community, which I have been observing for many years, an abnormal amount of observation about the whole truther thing. So I understand. Well, I understand better than these known truthers, these truther influencers. I understand the movie They Live way better than they do. Like they don't even understand what they're talking about, which is hilarious because they're supposedly the experts on They Live and conspiracy and they've completely lost like a good chunk of the point of the movie They Live. So let's talk about. So for those of you that are familiar with the movie They Live and how it relates to the truther thing, let's talk about the movie They Live. So first, I want to bring up a point that I've been revisiting in my videos in the last day. Is that you can measure a like the how do I say this? You can measure like the content of the integrity of an individual's narrative using, poverty as a barometer, because poverty is directly related to so much of this conspiracy, so much of it. And so, yes, it is probably the most effective tool at measuring the authenticity of a truther channel's narrative. Like, what are they talking about? And are they full of shit, or are they true? Are they really being true truthers, or are they bullshit truthers? And using poverty, you can accurately measure the authenticity of the narrative, what it is that they're talking about. And I've been bringing up examples in the last 24 hours. So this is one reason why They Live is so important. So let me go into one observation about They Live in reference to what I'm talking about and mentioning. So this is the thing, like, okay, take for example the scene where the stormtrooper militant martial law police come in and raid the homeless camp. If you are watched the movie and you're familiar with the movie and how it relates to conspiracy and the truther movement, then you understand the scene that I'm talking about, where the martial law stormtrooper militant police force comes in with the bulldozer, an armored truck, a helicopter, and an army of martial law militant stormtroopers, and they raid the homeless camp. So first off, that's real. That's not just they just wrote this scene like, oh, this would be cool. No, that happens in real life. And see, the people that made the movie, John Carpenter and all the people that were involved in the making of that movie, they understood that this happens in real life. Now, your average viewer of the movie is probably completely unaware that this happens in real life. And not only that it happens in real life, but that it's actually common. It probably happens once or twice a year in every major city in this country. At least in every major city. But also smaller cities and even towns. So most people that watch the movie They Live are completely unaware that this is actually based in reality. Okay? Now you might think, well, what does that have to do with conspiracy and the truther thing? So what? Those homeless people deserve it because they're lazy, they're mentally ill, they're drug addicts, they're criminal vagrants, they're degenerates, they failed to take so what? Well, see, that's the first disconnect. See, that's low IQ. Anybody that's their reaction. That's totally low IQ people. They're sheeple. Those are NPC sheeple, low IQ, that are completely out of touch with reality, let alone any kind of conspiracy that might be going on. Like, they're totally, and that's it. They're done. Those people are gone. It's like, you don't understand anything about the truther movement or any conspiracy that might be going on. No matter how much you claim you do or pretend you do, you're checked the fuck out. You're like a mainstream media NPC. That's it. So that's the first point. Now, for those of you that can still follow, where you're like, okay, yeah, martial law stormtrooper militant police armies going in and raiding communities, that is something that's definitely worth observing when we are talking about government conspiracy and truther movements. Yes. Martial law police? Yes. And that's actually happening in real life? Yes. So now we're talking. We've got some points of reference when we are exploring the world of conspiracy and truther movements. Yes, martial law, armies of military police, martial law police, storming communities and raiding communities, definite red flag. So this is why John Carpenter illustrated this in the movie, because anytime you see martial law, militant police officers and armies of them, stormtrooper, martial law police raiding communities, you should not allow that to be normalized, where it's like, yeah, who cares? Because those people are all just shitty people, right? Okay. So yeah, that's a big subject in the conspiracy world. Martial law stormtroopers, like, these are hot subjects in the conspiracy truther universe. Like, these are clickbait things we're talking about. Martial law, you know. So anyways, you know, I apologize if I'm coming across as though condescending, but I do have a wide audience that I have to address, being on YouTube. I don't know who the viewer is going to be, you know. So please bear with me. Okay? So that's the scene. They come in and raid these homeless people. Now let's explore the argument of rationalizing it. So you got the person that says, well, who cares? Those people are all just shitty, dirty, criminal. Okay, well, let's stop and look at that argument, the NPC sheeple argument, that they're all just, those are shitty people, and so it makes sense that the police go and raid those homeless camps. Well, okay, and why is that? Well, because they're all drug addicts, and they're all lazy, and they're all mentally ill, and they're all, criminal degenerates and stuff. Okay, well, is there a court of law is there a due process that has determined this? What if there's some of those homeless people that are innocent of all that, and they're just like, maybe they got displaced by the Hurricane Helene? How do you know that all those people are guilty of lazy, mentally ill, drug addicted, criminal, vagrant, degenerate, Like, how do you know? Is there a process of law, or is that just mob rules? So if you support that, then you support mob rule. You support everything you claim you're against, because you don't know how many of those people are innocent and how many of them aren't. And so this is what I mean when I say you can measure a society by how it treats its poor. You can measure the authenticity of a channel's narrative, a truther channel's narrative in their content. How authentic is it? Are they real truthers, or are they bullshit truthers? And poverty and homelessness is the most accurate measurement and barometer to use to determine who's a sellout in the truther community and who isn't. And once you realize this, then you start looking at the whole truther thing, and it's all one big fraud. 99% of them are all liars. Even your favorite ones that you thought were so great, they're not. They don't care about martial law stormtroopers invading and storming homeless camps all across the nation, in every major city in this country, which happens all the time. This is a common occurrence. Are any of them talking about that? No, none of them are. But they still love to talk about, oh my gosh, it's a police state, and it's a martial law is coming, and police state and martial law and stormtroopers and blah, blah, blah. They love to talk about that aspect of it, but that it's actually already been happening to the homeless camps for decades, they don't even mention that. That's not even part of their, which it should be if they really care about martial law and stuff. Because let's go into the next point I want to make. Is the poem. First they came for the candlestick makers, but I wasn't a candlestick maker, so I didn't say anything. Well, then they came for the bread bakers, but I'm not a bread baker, so I didn't say anything. And then they came for the teachers, but I'm not a teacher, so I didn't say anything. And then they came for all these people, and I didn't say nothing because I'm not one of them. Well, then they came for me, and it's like, hey everybody, I'm getting displaced. They're taking my rights away, and there's no one there to defend me. First they came for the displaced people. Call them homeless, call them displaced, call them bums, call them degenerates, call them vagrants, call them hobos, call whatever the fuck you want. First they came for the displaced people, but I didn't say anything because I'm not displaced. Well, who is saying anything about these over a million displaced people scattered all throughout the fucking country, in every major city, in every state in this country? Nobody's saying anything about it. And they are coming for them. They have been, and they will continue. And see, this is the thing. if we allow them to come for those people, just like the poem implies, if we allow that, well, they're coming for us. What makes us think that we're more important than the displaced people in the movie They Live? Why would any of us assume that we are better and more important, and therefore that won't happen to us because we don't deserve it and they do? Based off of what, though? What is that rationale based off of? Well, there is no law or due process of law to determine that those people deserve that or not. And that's what the biggest problem is. You have to, and are the laws just? Even if, is it just law? Well, no. So the injustice and unconstitutional policing has been coming for all these hundreds of thousands of displaced people for decades, and nobody said anything. That's a massive conspiracy. That's probably the biggest conspiracy that has gone on up until recent. And it hasn't gone away. But everybody wants to look away and pretend as though it doesn't exist. And so when you do that, when you have a society that looks away and just pretends and goes along and rationalizes with delusion, then all they're doing is contributing to the problem. It's not going away. No matter how much they claim themselves a truther and that they care about P. Diddy and Epstein scandals and all this other shit. Well, if they don't care about all these displaced people that I keep bringing up, then they're fucked. And so it's like a litmus test. You know what a litmus test is? Let me explain the litmus test. Like one example that they use for the litmus test. Okay, let me see if I got paper and pen handy. So the litmus test. Okay, this is the litmus test. Okay, the litmus test goes as follows. Is you are called in to an experiment, and everyone else, they're already actors. They're not even. You're the only one. So they put out for volunteers because we're doing this. We're doing some experiments and we need volunteers. We'll pay you fucking $1,000, and all you have to do is show up at the this experiment, and it's blah blah blah. And so you're like, okay, cool, I could use $1,000, and you show up. Well, you don't know that you're the only volunteer in the room, and there's 3 or 4 other people besides you, and those people are acting. They're not real volunteers. They're pretending to be volunteers. So you're the only volunteer in the room. And then here's the test. They make 4 lines. They put 4 lines. Fuck. Let me see. So they make 4. This is a very simple test. 4 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and then they have you look at it. You're the authentic volunteer. The other 3 guys, they're actors, and you don't know that they're acting. And they put up the piece of paper, and then they ask, okay, of you 4 people, which of these 4 lines is the tallest? And you're sitting on the end, so you're the last one to answer. And there's 3 people ahead of you, and they say, okay, which one do you think is the tallest? And they say, this one. It's like, okay, next person, which one do you think is the tallest? The next person says the same thing, this one. Then the third person says, okay, which one's the tallest? And third person says this one. And then they get to you, you're the only real volunteer, and they ask you, which of these is the tallest? And the litmus test proved that pure pressure wins every time, and the volunteer always, even though the volunteer knows this is the longest, tallest line, they just go with the status quo, and they just say that this is the tallest one. That's the litmus test. And so what all this stuff going on with homelessness is a litmus test. So they're sending in stormtroopers of fucking martial law, militant fucking stormtrooper armies with armored trucks, bulldozers, and helicopters and police cars, and they're going in and raiding all these homeless camps to watch as an experiment, as a litmus test, to watch how you respond. So this is what's going on, but they want to see if you're going to act, if you're going to acknowledge the reality of what it is, or if you're just going to go along with the status quo. And so they do this all for decades, and they watch everybody just go along with the status quo and continue to ignore what's really going on. And so then And so then they observe this through a litmus test, a mass litmus test, where it's a mass observation. And they use the homeless to do this, to test your average people. Like, how are your average people going to respond? Are they going to acknowledge it for what it is, or are they just going to go along with the status quo? And then they observe how everybody just keeps acting like this is no big deal. And so then they push the envelope. So now they start doing it not just in homeless camps. They'll go downtown. They'll do it downtown more publicly. They'll start putting it on the news. And on the news, they're reporting all these lazy, mentally ill, homeless, drug-addicted, degenerate, vagrant criminals. They're all ruining our city. And so the police have gone in and made a sweep, and now the town is getting clean. And it's all a continued litmus test to see how you respond. Are you going to acknowledge it for what it is? Or are you going to go along with the status quo? And this has been going on for years and years. And they're seeing that everybody just goes along with the status quo. Nobody stands up and says, wait, this is fucking wrong. Like, would you want them to do that to you? What if you ended up homeless from the Hurricane Helene, and then they just treat you as they're treating all these other displaced people? What if you end up displaced from a hurricane with all these other displaced people that nobody knows how they became displaced, and then you just get treated just like that? Nobody's questioning any of this. They're all just allowing it to continue on and on for years and years and decades. So now it's getting to the point, and it already has. We've already seen it with the health industry, the common cold, all these things. That now they're not going after just the displaced homeless people. They're going after you, the working class, the middle class. Now they're starting to grind down. They're unconstitutionally policing you. They're shutting your businesses down because of the common cold. They're, all this shit. They're forcing you to, they're putting all these mandates and, everything else, lockdowns, mandates. They're going after all of you now. And so then what happens is you'll see isolated incidents. Like, one woman got arrested because she wasn't wearing a mask. This was in 2020 or something. And the fucking cops grabbed her. They broke her fucking arm. And she went to jail because she wasn't wearing a face diaper. Okay, you start seeing more and more of this, more and more and more of this. And then these people, they get upset and they're demanding my rights, my rights. But see, that goes back to the litmus test. What about the rights of all those displaced people that they've sent in martial law to go and arrest and harass and destroy their property and everything else, and nobody ever said anything? Nobody's ever said anything, and this has been going on for decades. And now these same people that have never said anything, now they're arresting them because they're not wearing a face diaper. They're shutting their businesses down. And it's only going to get worse. It's only been getting worse just in the last 5 years. And all these people are going to all start crying injustice and demanding their rights as human beings. They have human rights, human rights, human rights. Well, what about the human rights of that homeless camp? Human rights, like, fuck you. It's obvious that nobody cared about rights because they've been running this test, litmus test, on a mass level in this country. And here's human rights, and here's everything else, and everybody's just been going for everything else because it's convenient, because their rights aren't being violated, so they're not going to acknowledge reality. They're just going to go with the status quo and whatever. These people that that are in power, they're not fucking stupid. And so they know that you have no right to demand rights when you have been ignoring the rights of other people all your life and gotten away with it. And what do you think, like people who are home displaced and have had all their rights stripped of them, and they've been unconstitutionally policed, and this has been going on? Do you think they're going to care when you, like, if you're one of these people that just ignore it and have always just enjoyed your rights, and then all of a sudden, like, they come arrest you because you weren't wearing the right baseball cap or something? Do you think any of those people are going to care about you when it happens to you? No. They're going to be celebrating it. They're going to be like, good, look at all these people who have ignored this. Now they're facing the same thing. And I've been warning people for years, like, dude, if you allow this, it's going to come for you. And everybody it's just crickets, just ignore it, everything else. And I've always used homelessness homeless displacement as the barometer and the measurement as a defense trying to bring this into the discussion that nobody wants to talk about. It's the 5,000-pound elephant in the room, or the 5,000-pound gorilla in the room. And they don't want to talk about it because they want to go to the status quo rather than acknowledging reality. They just go along with everybody else. But see, those are the people that are perpetuating the problems, and those are the very people that they're going to start coming for. And they already have been, and it's only going to get worse. And they're never going to learn until it actually happens to them. Once it happens to them, they're going to be crying and screaming for justice. And they're going to be calling out to everybody who needs to stand up against this injustice. But why would anybody stand up? Because nobody ever stands up for anybody. The whole country is divided by class, by money. You can measure a society by how it treats its poor.